Now, let me share a bit from A Journey to the West. In this place in America, many Tibetan masters, especially Gyalwa Rinpoche, such as Penor Rinpoche and Dudjom Rinpoche, many of them have come here over the years. Over a long period of time, they have made amazing contributions to the flourishing of the Dharma. Thanks to their efforts gathered in this hall today, there are many Western monastics in red and yellow robes. This is a delightful spectacle to see. Back in the 70s and 80s, many great Tibetan Buddhist masters came here, and their influence grew significantly over time. In particular, near Washington, there is the Palyul Center, which I will mention later. This is Penor Rinpoche's Dharma Center. There has always been a community of Western monastics there. They are still there today. We know they have always been present. At that time, His Holiness traveled from Hawaii to Boulder, Napa Valley, and other places. We basically did not see any Western monastics along the way, only Tibetan Buddhist monastics. But when we arrived there and suddenly saw so many Western monastics wearing robes, His Holiness was visibly delighted. Especially that day, I remember they were all seated in the front. The hall itself was quite large. I have a photo from earlier, please take a look. If you ever visit Washington in the future, I recommend paying a visit. This is a place where His Holiness once turned the wheel of Dharma. If you find yourselves there, please don't forget to visit. The architecture there is not like other places. Buildings from 20 or 30 years ago are still standing there, completely intact. In other major cities, many places have changed beyond recognition. New skyscrapers keep appearing in places where there were none just a few years ago. I've been there twice and nothing had changed. I don't know if it has since, so this hall remains quite special, but I didn't go inside. If I had, perhaps... Sogyal Rinpoche once mentioned, I think I've shared this once or twice, that he served as a translator for Dudjom Rinpoche and accompanied him to many Western churches. He visited many Western churches with him. After Dudjom Rinpoche passed away, when Sogyal Rinpoche returned to hold Dharma assemblies on his own, he felt deep sorrow in his heart. He said that while teaching, all the scenes of his master's Dharma assemblies when his master was still alive would flash before his eyes, one after another. Sometimes he couldn't continue speaking. That's what he said. So for us, we haven't really arranged to visit these places either, including us. There's a building in Singapore. Later, His Holiness went there in 1995. Khenpo Tsultrim Lodro and I, we've both been to Singapore several times since then. Each time we made a point to visit that place. There's a building called Hongfu Tower or something like that. We would take a photo nearby and reflect for a moment. Including at Kongmengsan, there's a temple where His Holiness once taught the Dharma. So generally speaking, nowadays, for example, those of us who traveled with His Holiness, later His Holiness went to Mount Jizu, including Mount Putuo. The Guanyin statue on the sea at Mount Putuo there. But later, I think, I have been to Mount Jizu. I may have never returned to Mount Putuo. We went there in 1997. Did I go again? I can't remember. Every time we visited the hotels we stayed at, including one hotel in Ya'an, I don't know if it's still there. A few years ago, I wanted to go see it, but I couldn't find the place. At that time, it was called something. The name wasn't very pleasant, so I won't mention it here. So, sometimes indeed, human memory, especially places where masters and disciples shared the Dharma, evoke a distinct feeling. So what did His Holiness say at that time? When he saw these Western monastics, His Holiness was visibly delighted. So before he began teaching, he expressed his thoughts on this. In any place, as long as there are bhikshus, bhikshunis, and male and female lay practitioners, these four groups, Buddhism is complete there. If any one of these four is missing, we cannot say Buddhism is there in its entirety. In Tibetan areas, as His Holiness mentioned in the Prophecy of Bodhivajra, Tibet originally had no bhikshuni oral transmission, but under His Holiness's teachings, all four groups of disciples are indeed present. So in a certain sense, this can be said to be a place where complete Buddhism exists. If any one of these four is missing, Buddhism is incomplete. Buddhism, the Dharma, yes. If a place has only monastics or only lay practitioners, Buddhism there is incomplete. But in your place here, Buddhism is complete, and this place can be referred to as the central land of Dharma. These principles are explained in the Vinaya, where all four groups of the Buddha's disciples are present. That is the sacred land of complete Buddhism, also called the central land. This is what the teachings say. In particular, the presence of monastic Sangha is of great significance. Why is that? Whether Buddhism is present in the world or not depends solely on the presence or absence of monastics. This is mainly stated from the perspective of the Vinaya. Otherwise, whether the Dharma remains, for instance, whether the Shurangama Sutra remains, or whether Buddhist precepts remain, there are different perspectives. But from the Vinaya perspective, this is the case. Of course, speaking of secret mantrayana, it exists in the world at all times. Celestial beings, Nagas, Yakshas, Gandharvas, Garudas. There are tantric practitioners in all these different realms. For this reason, the teachings of secret mantrayana will never disappear. From this perspective, this is the case. Speaking of the Buddha Dharma overall, where it diminishes and where it flourishes, the only means of determining this is to observe whether monastics are present or not. This is the reason why having so many monastics here is exceptionally rare. Some may wonder, how long will Buddhism survive in the world? This will still Actually, perhaps we don't need the word still. How long will it remain? The entire duration of the Dharma. It will remain 5,000 years in this world. According to the Buddha's teaching, when the Dharma is on the brink of vanishing, it will flourish from north to north. In the future, except in Khotan and the land of Tibet, there are two interpretations of Khotan. Some say it refers to Xinjiang, while others say it refers to Nepal. Except in the land of Tibet and Khotan, the Dharma will disappear in all other places, including India. What does this mean? The observation of pure monastic precepts will no longer exist. Some texts also state this. Currently, it's mainly because Tibetan Buddhism has spread to India. Otherwise, much of India's indigenous Buddhism would have declined. This is also stated, heading toward decline. However, at present, not only in Tibetan areas are there so many people observing monastic precepts, but also in Western countries. This is a perfect interdependent origination that suggests Buddhism will continue to flourish for a long period of time in the land of Tibet, as well as the entire world. If you can propagate the Dharma in the future, especially monastic precepts, it will truly bring prosperity and peace to the whole world. If monastics continue to grow in number, the entire world will indeed. If monastics in various monasteries continue to flourish, it might seem that more monastics means more people not engaged in labor, and with fewer farmers there would be less food and drink, but actually that's not the case. When the monastic Sangha grows, it brings peace and prosperity to the entire world. By doing so, all diseases, famine and war will be eradicated. There may indeed be such a connection. Some time ago, monastics in various countries were flourishing, but later, due to various reasons in different countries, in some places, the number of young monastics has been decreasing. In other places, because the internet has spread throughout the world, and in some places there are conflicts with other religions and so on. Now, in many places, the number of monastics is declining. Globally speaking, when we went to India before, there were many monastics in India. Later, due to various reasons now in India, the other day, a geshe mentioned online that classes used to have 40 or 50 students, but now there are only 4 or 5. This situation is quite common in many places in the West, needless to say. In Asia too, monastics in various countries may be facing extinction. It's quite possible that in another 20 or 30 years, all the monasteries, including Tibetan Buddhism, which relatively speaking still has more monastics now. But there are also many challenges. Because of this, we are thinking that in the future, many monasteries of Tibetan Buddhism and Chinese Buddhism may become empty buildings, perhaps with Buddha statues inside, just tourist sites. Truly, including the Han region with so many people in many monasteries, the large ones, how many monastics are there? And in small monasteries, there's often just one monk or one nun per temple. Currently, many situations are not very optimistic. You should be able to see this as well. As for our academy, the number of people keeps growing. This is not necessarily a good thing either. If one place keeps growing while other places keep shrinking, the crowded place will inevitably encounter certain issues eventually. He also mentioned here that the monastics at that time weren't that many either, but in His Holiness's address he could still say this. As for us here, for the time being, we have slightly more monastics. But there are also different different pressures. Yesterday we were discussing various matters. If monastics keep wanting to stay like this without proper graduation, if it continues this way, the pot will eventually become full. When it's full, it overflows. And when it overflows, spilling on the ground is a pity. So let's see how to handle this. Now we may consider that those who graduate from here, after a certain period of time, from now on, perhaps everyone should consider that our Dharma center may focus on going out to propagate the Dharma. After staying for 10 or 20 years, basically everyone doesn't really want to, because some people leave, and after leaving, at first they're full of confidence. I'm leaving to propagate the Dharma. I'm going to establish a Dharma center. Goodbye, Khenpos, and off they go. But after leaving, when they get there, they find that the chanting practices there are not what they're used to. Some places have poor conditions, some places are unwilling to accept them, and so on. In the end, after wandering around outside for a few days with nowhere else to go, they come back. Actually, when they come back, we're not too eager to take them either, because once these people go out, they pick up all sorts of habits and influences. They don't study and reflect properly, and they only return because they couldn't survive outside. If someone is truly stable and grounded, that's different. It's not that we want them to go out and propagate the Dharma. Sometimes they disappear on their own, go away for a while and then come back in tears. But every Khenpo has encountered cases like this. These situations actually, how to handle them better in the future, I think all of us here are adults. It's not for one person to tell everyone what to do. I'm just offering some suggestions about where we go from here. Perhaps everyone can reflect on this. Everyone here has no pressure. Everything is supported from outside. There's food and clothing here. Monthly living expenses are taken care of. Funds for reciting prayers are also covered. There's study and contemplation too. As long as there's no major violation of precepts, the Khenpo seem to be doing fine. It's just that maybe next semester we'll switch the Khenpo and see if you suffer or not. Then we'll figure it out. Other than that, there's no problem. Switch things up a bit, change the flavor. Bitter, sweet, sour, spicy, all kinds. This might be better. This Khenpo is a bit bitter. That Khenpo is a bit sweet. This Khenpo is a bit salty. Switch them around like that. Some people might think this way, but some people, bitter, sweet, sour, spicy, bitter, sweet, haven't tasted any of it. They just stay and stay and stay without any feeling, and who knows what happens in the end. What I just said might sound like the talk of a non-Buddhist. This is also just rambling. You probably didn't understand either. But what I mean is we should all observe the various causes and conditions. So far I am sharing some words about what I am concerned with from the worldly point of view. Now I will give a brief teaching following the Buddhist doctrine. It has been nearly 3,000 years since our root teacher, the great compassionate Lord Buddha, who possessed excellent skillfulness, turned the wheel of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths for the 5 human bhikshus and 80,000 celestial beings at Deer Park, India. According to the glorious Phugpa tradition, when His Holiness gave this teaching, it was the year 2873 of the Buddhist calendar. Now looking at it, it has already been over 2,900 years. The Phugpa calculation is like this. That was 30 years ago. There is a difference of over 300 years between the Phugpa calculation and the Sri Lankan common calculation. So according to the Phugpa tradition, our calendars now, many of them, including some calculations by Mifam Rinpoche, all follow the Phugpa tradition. It is also a very accurate calculation system. Calculated this way, the Buddhist calendar becomes like this. And this year is the Buddhist calendar, yes. According to the common calculation used by Buddhists worldwide, this year is the year 25 and 37 of the Buddhist calendar. This is, yes, the Sri Lankan Buddhist calendar. The World Fellowship of Buddhists, their calculation method is like this. Globally, we basically follow this calculation now. Now it should be, this year is 2568, right? Yes, that's about right. Now, by recalling the benevolence of the Buddha, I will briefly talk about the Buddha's teaching. Now, an overview of the Four Noble Truths. What did the Buddha teach? All phenomena arise from a cause. That cause was taught by the Tathagata. In order to bring an end to the cause, the Buddha taught how to train in the accumulation of vast virtue. This is the mantra of interdependent origination. This verse is the translation of the mantra of interdependent origination. Its meaning is expressed in the 4 lines I just mentioned. What is the meaning of this verse? This was taught by the Buddha to his disciples during his first turning of the wheel of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths. First, this is the truth of suffering. This is the truth of the origin of suffering. This is the truth of the cessation of suffering. This is the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. In the Avatamsaka Sutra and many other texts, the word suffering is added before each. But in some versions it's simply, this is the truth of suffering. This is the truth of origin. This is the truth of cessation. This is the truth of the path, without the word suffering in between. This shloka clearly tells the definition of the Four Noble Truths. Then, know the truth of suffering. Abandon the origin of suffering. Realize the cessation of suffering. Follow the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This shloka indicates what to do concerning the Four Noble Truths, or the method of practice. Then, there is no knowing of suffering, no abandoning of the origin of suffering, no realizing of the cessation of suffering, and no following of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This shloka indicates the ultimate result of the Four Noble Truths, speaking of the final emptiness. The Buddha explained the Four Noble Truths through these 3 shlokas, totaling 12 lines. After the Buddha gave these 12 truths, the 5 bhikshus attained arhatship through this teaching. They attained realization through this, and 80,000 celestial beings directly realized the true nature of reality. It was so simple for them. You see, just explaining this briefly, and we still haven't even grasped what it means, let alone attaining realization. We don't even understand the meaning. In other words, aside from these 12 truths, the Buddha did not expound upon other subjects. However, through the Buddha's power that was endowed with skillful means and great loving kindness and compassion, and because the listeners were devoted followers in their last rebirth in samsara, they were able to attain the qualities of enlightenment in terms of abandonment and realization. Whether arhats or celestial beings, all attained the state of noble beings. The second and third shlokas were taught for those who had already attained certain levels of realization, but there might be a slight discrepancy here. Among these 3 shlokas, actually it's the first 2 that His Holiness summarized here. We'll cross-check this later. There's a slight issue here. Let's see what the Tibetan text says. Then below, following Lord Maitreya's Uttaratantra Shastra, he resides in the Tushita heaven as the regent of Buddha Shakyamuni. His Holiness's explanation follows Lord Maitreya's Uttaratantra Shastra, the 4th chapter on Buddha activity, I believe. Know the illness, abandon its cause, attain the state of well-being, and rely upon the medicine. We discussed this when we taught the Uttaratantra Shastra. According to Maitreya, the Buddha expounded the Four Noble Truths through an analogy. The first line, for a person who is seriously ill, the first thing is to recognize the suffering of the disease, the illness itself. This is to know the truth of suffering. Second, if the individual wants to be rid of the illness, he or she needs to know the cause, diet, behavior, what caused the disease, what brought it about, and then eliminate it. This is to abandon the origin of suffering. Third, when the illness is gone, the body and the mind will be comfortable and happy. What is this? This is to realize the cessation of suffering. Fourth, the cessation of suffering, the state where both suffering and its origin are eliminated, does not appear without a cause and a condition. Just as it is necessary to rely on medicine to get rid of illness, one needs to practice on the right path to attain the cessation of suffering. What is this? This is to follow the path leading to the cessation of suffering. I think everyone should understand the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, so in this overview, he explained roughly these points. All right, that's all for today.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye